Hi, welcome to Lockdown Church. I am your host, Pastor Jacob Mabote, and this is a platform where we offer you inspirational, practical, and biblical content that will make you to know who you are in God, because you are not what the world says you are. You are not what your circumstances says you are, but you are what God says you are. Bafundisi, thank you for being part of this show today. How are you?
Very well, man of God. God is good. Life goes on. So Jesus is still Lord namhlanje.
Wow, powerful. Mfundisi, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks. Thank you for having me on DaveytonTV. I hope people will enjoy.
Wow, powerful. Mfundisi?
Fudis, I'm very well. Thanks for having me here. It's an honor and a privilege.
Wow, powerful. Thank you, Mfundisi, for being part of this show. We are continuing with our subject, God, Values, and Money. But today, we are going to talk about wisdom in borrowing. Wisdom in borrowing. The first question, Bafundisi, that I want to ask you, Uguti, what does wisdom in borrowing mean to you, Mfundiswa?
Mina personally, Mfundisi, wisdom in borrowing. The wisdom in borrowing at first is not borrowing at all, if not necessary.
Okay.
Ideally, we should not borrow.
Okay.
Because actually borrowing suggests that there is a need ahead of you of which are not enough resources to meet that particular need.
Okay.
And therefore you need additional resources in order to satisfy that need. So there are alternatives of getting around it. You must not borrow. But the wisdom in borrowing, whenever sekfinyelela isimo, because it is difficult to survive without debt, because you can't buy a house in cash, because by the time we say vela in the 500,000, say 2 million. So it means the wisdom in borrowing, it suggests to borrow only for assets.
Okay.
And not for liabilities.
Okay.
Assets are things that bring money or add value.
Okay.
And liabilities are things that take money away from you.
Wow, powerful. Fundis, what does this mean? Wisdom in borrowing.
Man of God, wisdom in borrowing. Let me start by saying it's a very an unusual terminology.
Okay.
Wisdom in borrowing.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, abantu abathandi to borrow.
Okay.
Therefore, in order for abantu not to borrow, kufanele babe wisdom.
Okay.
You see, so we encourage ukuthi singaborrow. You know, in Liability, he who borrows becomes a slave of the one who has borrowed.
Okay.
So it's not a good idea to borrow.
Okay.
But we do know what system is pillar kuyo emhlabeni. Iyasichanela sizithole siboleka singazimiselanga.
Okay.
There's absolutely nothing wrong kakhulu in borrowing.
Okay.
But there's a problem in borrowing forever. Kancane you borrow. There's no wisdom there.
Okay.
If umzalwane osindisiwe anakhona ukuphila without borrowing, let him do that. We want to encourage to acquire things without borrowing. But if there is no other way, let ukuboleka kube as minimal as possible. That is my view, man of God.
Wow, powerful. Fundis, what does wisdom in borrowing mean to you?
I think the pastors have covered it so well, you know, because I honestly believe Namuguti, once you become a borrower, you become a slave to the lender. You know, however, as I've mentioned in some of the previous episodes, I believe in assets and liabilities. You know, Sibega, the story of the woman who had to borrow the oil. You know, I love that story because the purpose of borrowing for her was that she
borrowing the oil.
The vessels.
The vessels,
Okay.
sorry. Borrowing the vessels. The purpose was for her to do business and pay the lender. So in that case, I do agree. But borrowing just for liabilities and just for fun, it's totally foolishness.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you if you borrow money from the church and you buy the sound system, is that a liability or an asset?
Borrow money, please explain for me what.
I'm saying if you are a leader in the church and you borrow money from the church and you go and buy the sound system, is that an asset or a liability? The sound system, is it a liability or an asset?
Well, it depends, because number one, as a church, we do need a sound system, you know, and it depends whether you want that sound system.
But the sound does not bring money back.
The money does not bring money back, right? All I'm saying is that
the sound,
yes, does not bring money. But you can have an arranged whatever meeting with the people that you pastor and say, guys, especially leadership, you cannot just borrow from people who follow you. You know, you sit with the leadership, and maybe if you want to borrow for the church, there's a need, there's no sound. But if there's a sound, there's no need for you to want to amplify the sound at that time. You trust God as a believer. But if there's a need, then like it happens instantaneously, where there is no sound at all and you are very in need of sound, you can sit down with the leadership and make a proper arrangement.
Wow, powerful. The word of the Lord says, if you obey my commands, you will lend to many and borrow to none. In other words, as a child of God, it is important for you to understand that if you obey the Lord, He will supply your needs. Mfundisi, the next question says, when does borrowing become unwise?
Borrowing becomes unwise when one borrows for the purpose of satisfying isisu.
Okay.
Once you borrow for ukudla, or you borrow.
But if I don't have money, I need food, and I ask you to lend me 100 times for me to be able to provide for my family, is that wrong?
In the wisdom.
Yes.
I would rather come to you and say, man, aguko lutes ngal share or nidle nawe, than for me to get myself in debt. Because, man of God, there are people abatata ama credit cards and for ama pizza.
Okay.
For ukudla kumnandi ama KFC, swipe a credit card in order to enjoy life.
Yeah.
It is something else. Uzothi mhlambe ngiphi 20 rand yokuthi ngithenge impuphu because kusasa khona la ngi-expect call.
Yes.
But it becomes unwise when one borrows just for the purpose of satisfying inyama ukuthi ngidle kamnandi ngisuthe, and to meet the standards of my neighbors.
Okay.
Because next door neighbor yami ithenge ama-sofa we-UFO, bewangekho ku-plan yethu, bewangekho ku-budget yethu for the year, besingayihlelelanga leyo. And then because I see uBishop Ufenyane ethenga ama-sofa, nami ngizifake in debt for something that I did not plan for it.
Okay.
You see.
Powerful. Mfundisi, when does borrowing become unwise?
It becomes unwise if, number one, uhlala kamashonisa. It's unwise.
What do you mean uhlala kamashonisa?
Uhlala uboleka imali all the time kumashonisa.
Okay.
That thing is not right. Abazalwane must do everything in their power ukungaboleki imali kamashonisa or kancane kancane namalona i4 namalona i5. Those are the things that are not, you are not wise per se when you have such.
Okay.
We are not saying you must not borrow. But if possible, you can raise money borrow, let it be. That's what we need first and foremost. But if you have to borrow, you can't borrow money and then from there you're going to buy pizza, you're going to buy KFC in Jongwashilo. It's really unwise.
Oh, but is it okay for a Christian to come to church and borrow in the house of God if he or she is struggling?
Borrowing at all is not encouraged. Whether kusenkonzweni or kuse bank or borrowing is not encouraged. Jesus does not encourage people to borrow. In fact, the Bible encourages Christians to lend others.
Okay.
Yithi kumele siboleke abanye kunokuthi thina sibolekwe. Kodwa ke mawube isimo is forcing us ukuthi sibolekwe, it must not be careless. So if umzalwane uyaboleka enkonzweni, it's okay, though we don't encourage it and so forth and so on. Singabantu in general, indlu emnyama, we need to learn how to generate revenue by ourselves. Singazange siboleke, ngoba the more uboleka, you are enriching the other person rather than yourself.
Wow.
So as singaboleki,
wow, powerful. When does borrowing become unwise?
I think you know, because people they come for you.
Yeah.
You know, I think what you pastor one, as we have established, which borrowing actually is not wise, but through certain situation and unique situation, it is somehow permissible. You know, also in the Bible, to make it habitual, it's my habit in the Bible. And also the Bible, it does encourage, I think it's Psalm chapter 37 verse 21. The Bible, a wicked man borrows and he does not repay. You see, it's also unwise to have your money. So I think that's that. You need to know which if you are bolega, you'll have means to pay back. Yes, and also stop making bolega your habit.
Wow, yes. Powerful. We are simply saying to you, be proactive. Plan. Don't be reactive. Don't act because of the situation. Plan ahead. That will help you. That's what we are talking about. Be wise in borrowing. Mfundisi, the next question says, what are some of the benefits of being wise when it comes to money?
The benefits of being wise, mfundisi. The first one is, uma usunayo ngobuningi, you have multiple options.
Okay.
Because when you are wise with your spending, you have an option yokuthi uzoshalaphi, uzogcoka ini, udlani. The benefits of being wise ukuthi you do not leave, when you die, you leave an inheritance for your offsprings. But
where do we get this wisdom?
The wisdom, mfundisi, that's a very powerful question, because understand financial wisdom asiyitholi esikolweni. And one of the things we need to understand, ikakhulukazi thina isizwe sinsundu, ukuthi we need guidance in this area, because this is not something you can learn by mistake or by trial and error all the time, because you might not have enough money to make all the mistakes in terms of investments. But this is something that those who have gotten it right, bafundisa laba ababhetla ngayo, because there are those who can save, those who know how to invest within the black community, abangafundisa abanye. But because of this mentality yekrebology yokuthi every time umunye wethu azamukhuphuka sibuya phansi, even those that want to teach others babona ngazuthi they are a threat, or babona ngazuthi they are a challenge kithina, or a competition here.
Wow, powerful fund is the benefits.
Maningi ama benefits. Ithi ngicale ngokuthi abantwana bakaNkulunkulu akumelanga bakhulume imali kabi.
Okay.
Ngifuna ngiqale lapho nje ukuthi imali is not your enemy. Uma ingekho ungayikhulumi kabi, ukhulume kabi ukuthi money what. Akekho umuntu ofuna ukuhlala endaweni la akhulunywa kabi khona.
Okay.
So number 1, ungakhulumi imali kabi, ikhulume kahle.
Okay.
And then number 2, imali uma unayo as a child of God, don't forget others.
Okay.
That's very important.
Okay.
Uma una something that God has blessed you with, don't enjoy things alone. You eat everything alone. Learn to share with others. Okay. We are children of God here. Godly principles must always apply to us as children of God.
Okay.
Young women of God.
Yeah.
That's. I want to stop there for now.
Okay. The benefits from this.
I think one of the benefits is an inheritance. You know, and also your word becomes king. You know, if you own property, you are the one who's going to give directions. Within this property, these are the rules of Kalala. So it benefits one, it gives your word a power. It also the issue of inheritance.
Meaning that in the church, if you have money, you have power more than those who doesn't have money.
Well, it depends on the context. You cannot you know, see big as a blanket, but from the point of being a business owner,
okay,
or owning something outside of church.
Okay.
So it gives you power. You command and things happen. You know, because that's one of the benefits of having money, and also the issue of inheritance as well.
Wow, powerful. I hope you understand. We are trying to encourage you. We want you to understand that money is important. And the word of the Lord says, money, it is the answer for everything. So like as Umfundis has said, don't curse imali, because money, it is an answer. So make sure that you take care of imali, for imali ukuzikwazi ukunakekela. Mfundisi, the next question here, we asking the question, which bad roots do people need to uproot when it comes to borrowing?
That one is good, Mfundisi. One of the bad roots as a corner is that the first thing ekumele uyenze ngemali is to spend it.
Okay.
Because ukuthi kune tendency esinayo ukuthi immediately mawunemali usucabanga ukuthi ngingenzani, ngingayispenda kuphi. That is one route ekumele mhlambi idilo nayo ukuthi you can have money and not spare and not buy anything and just think or invest or save for a particular purpose. And number two, enye route ekumele kudilwe ngayo ukuthi imali, for instance, akusiyi into engakunikeza power over others, but money, use it as your slave, as your servant. Imali ingakubusi wena, inga-change behavior, inga-determine ukuthi uphatha abanye abantu kanjani, but use it as a resource, because we must get to a point where money works for us and not us working for money.
So by dealing with these tendencies, what do you mean when you say we must dealing in a sense that I need to go to a particular institution where they will teach me about how to use the money, or should I go for deliverance, or should I go to when langizogezwa khona ukuthi wasikhipha isinyama sokungabi nemali?
Good question. By dealing with things, I simply mean kumele sometimes there needs to be a paradigm shift. You need to learn new information about something, not necessarily that one, but deal with the root cause of the issue. If the issue is the upbringing yakho yekwenze ukuthi uspende ngendlela ospenda ngayo, change your mindset. If ngabe, of course, it's a curse or a generational curse, deal with it via deliverance and so forth, but use the right tool for the right job. Don't just pray for money. Ekumele uyisave wena kanti ucareless ngayo.
Which bad roots? We are running out of time.
Number one, let me say the purpose of having money, it is not to buy,
okay,
but it is to save.
Okay.
That's the number one principle.
What's the use of saving? I have money but I don't use it. Why?
No, we're not saying you must not use it. We're saying the purpose of it is to save it first and foremost.
Okay.
We're not saying don't use it. You have to use it.
Yeah.
But that's not the first purpose why you have it.
Okay.
You don't have money to spend. No. You have money to save.
Okay.
Then you can spend. Okay. So spending is secondary.
Okay.
But saving is primary.
Okay.
Once over the 20 rand.
But how do I deal with the root, the bad tendencies?
Very easy. Just know the purpose of this money first.
Okay.
But the reason why we have a tendency, we don't know the purpose of the money.
Okay. The next one.
Okay. Number one, instant gratification.
Yeah.
You know, from chabula manje, money man, you want to spend it now. And secondly, no imali. You know, to think uchi richness is ungodly, and to think uchi poverty glorify God. So we need to deal with those things. Which, you know what, money, it's important to have money, and one of the ways we can deal with that is to check. You know, if you can read the book of Proverbs, from Proverbs chapter 1 to Proverbs chapter 31, there is a wisdom for spending, there is wisdom for saving, and there is wisdom for giving. So we can study from the book of Proverbs and know how do we deal with these things.
Wow, powerful. Understand the purpose. Mfundisi is saying the primary purpose Yemali is to save. So learn to save, because saving, that will help you. You save for emergencies, because in this life, a lot is happening. So learn to save. Mfundisi, the last question, how can we be wise and increase our informed choices about money?
I think in a nutshell, mfundisi, just to be quick, ukuthi kune principle eyasetshenziswa uJoseph ngephupho yokuthi there were 7 years of abundance and there were 7 years of famine. So during the 7 years the abundance, they saved a lot. So during the 7 years the famine, they did not feel it because Bible saver for difficult times. So every time have an emergency budget and emergency saving. Keep on saving when you are in good times, and you will not feel the winter.
Fundis, how can we be wise and increase our informed choices about money?
Discipline, 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 and discipline. Very important.
Also, I also believe we need to learn to trust God.
Okay.
In terms of, if you can check 2 Corinthians chapter 8, the Macedonian church was in famine, and also the church in Jerusalem was in famine. But when Paul writes to the Corinthian church, he says the Macedonian church gave to the church in Jerusalem. So you see, we need also to believe God with our finances through giving. So, because I know to have and I know to have not, and in the midst of that, I am content.
Wow, powerful. I hope you have learned a lot today, because we are a platform that is meant to inspire you, give you the practical content that will make you to be wise. In this case, because we are talking about wisdom in borrowing. So make sure that you take care of imal, and don't forget to discipline. Discipline is key. I mean, because last week we were talking about wisdom, responsibility in spending. So we said a person who does not have self-control is like a house without windows. So make sure that you learn these principles. They are going to help you to be a better person. We love you. This is DaveytonTV. Keep on liking our page on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe on our YouTube channel. Bafundisi, thank you so much. We love you, and we're saying to you, learn to be wise in your borrowing. And don't forget to use your sense before you use your sense. Thank you so much. We love you. May God bless you. Shalom.
Shalom.
No.